So I'll begin by introducing Mahamsa. I didn't even know. But Prabhupada told him. So he joined ISKCON in 1969 in Canada. But he's from Bombay, from this Parsi community. Persians, Iran. It's in Sanskrit Parshva. Parshva became Persia. Parshva means next to India. Parshva. Now you know. And these Zoroastrians were Agni Upasakas, worshippers of fire. It came from Vedas, but some change. Agni Puja. So as a youth, he was quite young at that time. Mahamsa Prabhu was born in 1952. So 1969, you were 18 years old, right? 17, 18. He joined ISKCON, was very young. ISKCON started in 66. So 69 was the third year. And after, how long were you in Canada?
About 1 year at the most.
Okay.
8 months.
So Prabhupada at that time wanted anyone who was Indian to come to India in ISKCON. Prabhupada came. Prabhupada history, you may or may not know, that he went to the US in 65, and in 1967 he suffered a major heart attack, and he came back to India to recover. He only brought one disciple with him, and then later on a couple disciples went to Mayapur, Navadvip. But in 1970, Prabhupada brought a big group of disciples and started traveling to different places. In 1972, he sent Mahamsa Prabhu to organize the first ISKCON program in Ahmedabad. Since Parsis came from Iran, but they took up Gujarati. They came to Gujarat, they speak Gujarati at home. And so, from Ahmedabad, they had a big program. But in Hyderabad, there was a big businessman, G. Pullareddy. I don't even know what G stands for till today. But he was a very rich sweet shop owner. And anybody who knows, now there's like 20 shops in Hyderabad. At that time, there was one in Hyderabad and one in his native Kurnool. He was from Kurnool. And he was a big Vishwa Hindu Parishad man. So he donated 1,000 square yards in Hyderabad. And Prabhupada put Mahamsa in charge of Hyderabad. And my history, I joined ISKCON in 1973 in Chicago. I was 17. I hadn't completed 18 running. 17 completed, 18 running. And just 2 months before my 18th birthday, I joined the temple. And I was also there 1 year. And then I came to Bombay, and from Bombay I went to Mayapur, Vrindavan, back to Bombay. But in Mayapur, I asked Achyutananda Swami, who was based in Hyderabad, if I could join his traveling preaching party, and he said yes. So then after Mayapur Festival 1974, I went to Vrindavan, Bombay, and then Achyutananda sent me to Hyderabad. Well, Prabhupada came to Hyderabad, and we all went to Tirupati. We went together in a matador. If you remember, many people here may not have ever even seen a matador. There's some goods matadors are left. You hardly see the passenger. So we went 60, I remember traveling there. We stopped for idlis. This was from Hyderabad to Tirupati. It was very hot. It was April. And how much was one idli? How much is one idli now? Huh? How much?
10 rupees.
10 rupees. Local small hotel, 10 rupees. It was 10 paisa at that time. 10 paisa for one idli. And there were those soda bottles that you pushed the marble.
Yeah.
How much was that at that time? Just think. 2 paisa. 2 paisa. And in Hyderabad, they had many grape gardens, growing grapes. All are gone. And a glass of fresh grape juice, one big glass, was 1 rupee. And 1 kilo of those grapes with the seeds, anabshahi, 1 rupee a kilo. And these badam mangoes from Andhra Pradesh, 1 rupee a kilo at that time. So that was India. So I spent from 1974 till February 1979, he was my boss. He was the president of Hyderabad, and there was a big farm. Prabhupada went to that farm two times. Yeah, he went twice to the farm, in 1975 and in 1976. 75, there was a function to inaugurate a railway stop, not even a station, Dabilpur halt. The train was halting at Dabilpur. And the governor of Uttar Pradesh was Dr. M. Chenna Reddy, Mari Chenna Reddy, who had been the chief minister of Andhra earlier. He started this Telangana, and long after he expired, his dream was fulfilled. They made a Telangana, unfortunately. I think it's crazy. But anyway, who am I? So, Chenna Reddy came to inaugurate the railway halt, just a stop. And I remember I brought the head of the South Central Railway, the general manager, and Chenna Reddy blasted him like anything. You remember that? You don't remember. Rajan. Later on, that Rajan was a Tamilian. He became head of the whole India Railway Board. Later on, much later. He was a very nice person. So many memories are there. I didn't give a full introduction. After Prabhupada disappeared in 1977, many of you may or may not know that there was certain conflicts in ISKCON, which to some extent got resolved in 1987. Somebody should write a history book. In fact, I have a book, ISKCON in the 1970s, but it was a diary of Satsvarup Maharaj. Not one diary, several diaries. But that was ISKCON in the United States in the 1970s, not worldwide. He had many interactions with Prabhupada. Well, Mahamsa had lots of association with Prabhupada. Compared to him, I had very little association with Prabhupada. And compared to me, most disciples of Prabhupada had almost no personal association. Because, yeah, it was like that. Prabhupada was constantly traveling. He was in the, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki. So, it looks like I'm taking all the time. And this type of a discussion could go on for many hours. And Mahamsa Prabhu has to reach back to Kodaikanal, where he settled after he left ISKCON in 1982. But he's made a comeback. He comes every year to Mayapur to the Kirtan Mela, spends a week or 10 days in Mayapur. And now he has a farm in Kodaikanal he wants to give to ISKCON. So my hope is that you people would look after that farm. But that's up to you and Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, who I already discussed. This, and Gokul Chandra Prabhu, when he comes back, he can go and take a look. So that's the end of the introduction. So I'll let Mahamsa Prabhu talk about his remembrances of Prabhupada, and maybe when he comes to Hyderabad, because he had a lot of association with Prabhupada in Bombay before he came to Hyderabad. So if he comes finally to Hyderabad, then we can share the mic again. I'm a big talker, so I'm not the biggest talker, because our Sanskrit Guruji, to learn languages you have to be a big talker. So he learned 13 or 14 languages. And before I hand the mic over, I just want to mention the Brahman, Brahmano, Brahmavachasi is from the Yajurveda. And it's the Varnashram mantra. Veda, how many shlokas are in the Vedas? You know? You know? You know? Who knows? How many shlokas in the Vedas? This is a trick question. Anyone can answer?
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
How many mantras are in the Vedas? No, you...
Unlimited.
Huh?
Unlimited.
Unlimited? No. You'll be surprised by the answer. Nene, how many shlokas in the Vedas? That was the question. How many shlokas in the Vedas?
4 lakhs.
4 lakhs. Guess what? There are no shlokas in the Vedas. Not one. They're mantras, not shlokas. That's the trick. There's no shloka. Where did the shloka start? Who can answer this question? Trick, he can answer. But he knows, but who, anyone else know? Where did shloka start? Who? I heard somebody say something. Shiv Puran. Upanishads. Shamikya Vendum. Anyone else want to guess? Bhagavad Gita. Shamikya Vendum.
He does a guess.
Valmiki Ramayana. Adi Kavi is Valmiki. Ramayana is where shlokas began. Okay, I'm taking too much time. So anyway, because he chanted that Brahman, Brahmano, Brahmavachasi, that describes Varnashram Dharma in Yajurveda. It's a mantra, because Vedas are mantras. So you know. Hare Krishna.
Well, one thing is that although in 1981, although I stayed away from ISKCON, I never left ISKCON, because every day when I will do my Mangal Arati and when I do my Sandhya Arati, I will always offer my obeisances to ISKCON and to all the devotees. And whenever I had a chance to go to any center, I would go and visit over there. Although nobody recognized me because I grew a beard and hair. And that is because once we were sitting in the room with Prabhupada, and Paramhamsa Swami, one sannyasi of that time, American sannyasi, he came into the room, and he had started library book distribution in America. He was going all over the libraries, and he was very successful in distributing books in all the libraries, and he was explaining to Prabhupada all that, how he did that, and Prabhupada was very happily listening to him. But he had grown some hair, you know. He was very young and good looking, and he had grown a little hair like that, you know. So after a little while, Prabhupada, after hearing him for a while, Prabhupada said, "What about this hair?" You know. So then he said, yes, Prabhupada, you know, he blushed a bit and he said, I have to grow this hair, otherwise they will not, if I go in normal clothes, they will not allow me to, they will not be open to receive the books. So I had to do this. So Prabhupada said, yeah, that's okay, it's good, it's not a problem. He didn't chastise him. But Prabhupada mentioned that for sadhus, there is two things to do with the hair. One is you shave, like how we in ISKCON we shave and have a sutra. So for sadhus must either shave or no touch. That means you don't touch your hair at all, no clipping and shaping and making a fashion. So when I was in ISKCON, I always hated shaving my hair because I was very bad and I used to keep cutting myself and there was blood here and blood there. So very reluctantly I used to shave my hair. And then finally when I left ISKCON, I remembered this, what Prabhupada said. So from the day I left ISKCON, I never touched my hair. And so it grew longer, now it's growing shorter. But yeah, so although I visited the centers, I used to not be recognized, and so I used to enjoy the kirtan and the bhajan and all those activities of ISKCON. And I always offered my obeisances to ISKCON as a movement and to the devotees and take their blessing all through the days that I was away. So in one way I never left ISKCON because that is my Prabhupada, our Guru Maharaj's dream, it's his institution, it's his mission. In a way, ISKCON is a representation of Prabhupada. ISKCON is Prabhupada. So when I came, I joined in Canada, and once one letter came from Bombay to Jagdisha Prabhu, who was the president of there. And at the back I saw the address of, it was a letter from Prabhupada and I saw the address. It was Kailas Seksharia's house in Marine Drive. So I told the president that, oh, this is just opposite where I lived. I lived on Marine Lines. So I mentioned that, and I also wrote to my mother, who lived just opposite, that I have my Guru Maharaj, whom I have surrendered to. She was very happy that I had surrendered and taken a spiritual life and I had stopped my smoking and doing all the crazy things I was doing at that time. So she was very happy. So I said to her that I am joined and my Guru Maharaj is there. So she met Prabhupada before I met her. My mother met Prabhupada before I met. But when Prabhupada heard that I have joined, he wrote a letter immediately saying, send that boy quickly to India, because I have a whole lot of Western devotees who don't know how to talk and deal with the local public. So I was told to come and I very happily came back, and it was in Akash Ganga that I started my brahmachari life. Before the Juhu Center. Juhu came, we got the Juhu Center later, but at that time we were staying in Akash Ganga, one building, we had taken one apartment.
This is, 1 minute. This is around 1970.
Yes.
Prabhupada got the Juhu land in 72. There's a picture of the foundation stone that he laid, and it's written 1972. So this is 2 years earlier.
So we had a temple, an apartment which we had a deep, very beautiful Gornitai or a picture altar. It was not murtis, but we had a picture altar. And we had a hall where we used to do all the pro kirtan, and Prabhupada lived in one room and there were 2 brahmachari rooms where we lived.
How many brahmacharis were there?
There were probably 15 of us there. 15 or maybe a little more or down, sometimes more. There were some Grihasthas also who were there. Krishna was there. Shyam Sundar and Malati were there, you know. So there were some Grihasthas, some brahmacharis. And in those days, Prabhupada was very open. Anyone could go into Prabhupada's room. And devotees would be sitting there, you could just go in and join the group and talk and ask questions, and katha would go on. Like that it was going on, and then very early days, suddenly the Rishi Kumar, I think, was the treasurer, and he had to leave for something. So Prabhupada, Shyam Sundar was the president of the temple. He told me to be the treasurer. And I was very strict in those days. I was almost fanatic devotee, you know. So I thought we are all sadhus and we must be very strict with money and eating outside. So I would not give any money as a treasurer. I would not give my, sometimes they want to drink sugarcane juice outside, or they want to go in taxi. So I would say, no, go by bus and no sugarcane. I was very strict. And Prasadam was also very strict, you know, only khichdi and no, we are brahmacharis, we are sadhus, we must eat very simple, you know.
Who was cooking?
Some devotees were cooking. I was making chapatis sometimes. Dinanath was there. He used to sometimes make. Some devotees were there. I think Jamuna was there. Yeah, Jamuna was there. Guru Das, right? So she was cooking.
Who cooked for Prabhupada?
Jamuna.
I see.
Jamuna was cooking. But it was a period of time, so the cooks changed.
This is before the Surat. I should keep it on. This is before the Surat program.
It was a part of the Surat was a while.
Surat was in December 1970, 3 weeks, and into January, 4th of January was the last day.
We went to Surat all together.
You were in that program, right?
So I was very strict with all the devotees, and so the devotees were not very happy. So they complained to Prabhu that this Mahamsa is very strict, and you know, Prasadam is not good, like that, you know. So Prabhupada one day called me to the room, and very gently, he could order me, he is the boss. He can just say, Mahamsa, good Prasadam, do it like that. But Prabhupada's way was always very different. He took the time and perseverance to explain to me very nicely. He says, you know, these devotees from America, they have left their family, they have left their country, they have left their property, and they are helping me to serve Lord Chaitanya. And he explained in great detail all very nicely about how these devotees have sacrificed everything to help me to serve, and they are doing all this service. And so I am indebted to them, you know. And they have given up everything, they have given up meat eating, they have given up relationships, they have done all that. At least one thing I must give them. I must satisfy their tongue. They have given up everything, but I must satisfy their tongue. So I said, oh yes, so what to do, Prabhupada? I said, give him good prasad. So I said, okay, if you say like that, you are the Guru, whatever you say I will do. So I came out of the room and immediately I ordered 1 tin ghee, 10 kilos kismis, kaju, this, that, you know, big list I made of shopping. Now the devotees thought, what's happened to this Mahamsa suddenly? But from that day onwards, it was very good prasad there. So Prabhupada was like that. He said he always wanted the devotees to have good prasad. And therefore our ISKCON movement all over the world is famous for prasadam. You know, in England and I mean all over the world, they had, in the early days, they had this little Sunday love feast. Sunday love feast. That means people would be invited and there would be kirtan and bhajan and discussion, and there would be a play. Devotees would create a skit, a kind of a drama of some story, you know, and we would do a play ourselves, Narsinga story or crossing the boat story, you know, small stories. We would act ourselves and we would make a play and entertainment, and all the public would come, and then there would be prasadam. And many people came just for the prasadam. And I know some devotees who joined because they didn't care. Actually, when I rang the bell in Toronto to enter the temple, I said I want to join, and the devotee opened the door. He says, "Are you crazy? These people are so strict over here, you know." Like that he said. He was discouraging me. But then later on when I joined, later on I found out that that devotee was only in the temple because he liked Rasgulla. He told me that I don't believe in all this Hare Krishna and all so much. I'm doing it, but I can't get out of that Rasgulla. So Krishna attracts people in different ways. So prasadam, as Prabhupada said, is one of the most powerful tools of our movement to attract people, good prasadam. And so I'm very happy to see all your kitchen over here, where you have such big bartan, and you are planning to distribute so much prasadam to everybody and make good quality prasadam. So that's very good. So that was one incident. Another incident, my mind is now in Akashganga, so I will tell you some stories of that place.
Oh, let me interrupt. When Prabhupada brought the first Western devotees to India, there was a rich Marwari businessman, Kailas Seksariya. Seksariya
was staying in Seksariya.
Yeah, in Agarwal. From the name, you know, because we are Agarwalologists in North India. You know? You understand that? You don't understand. You know, there's a cardiologist for the heart, and there's ophthalmologist for the eyes, neurologist for the brain, and there's a rich caste in North India called Agarwal. So those people who go to the Agarwals and know their families and you know what businesses they run, they're called Agarwalologists by me. I coined this word. So this Agarwal, I never saw him, never met him. But he had a big flat in an apartment building. It wasn't a house. And that part of Bombay is the most costly place in India. Malabar Hill. It's called Malabar Hill. Residential. It's a residential area. And in the the ninth floor? What floor were you on?
We were on Breach Candy.
No, Breach Candy is Malabar Hill. Yeah, no, what floor was it on?
The ninth floor.
Ninth floor in this apartment building. Prabhupada and his disciples were living. This is what he's describing. In 1970, 71, 72, then Prabhupada got the Juhu land. So then everyone shifted to Juhu. Yeah. So that's the history.
So
he's talking about this period, 70, 71, 72.
Yeah.
You lived there for 3 years?
I was there for my duty. First, my first duty was to assist Shyam Sundar. Shyam Sundar was the leader of ISKCON, senior most devotee at that time. Shyam Sundar and Malati, you may know.
Shyam Sundar just wrote a book, Chasing the Rhinos with the Swami. You heard about this book? Bhakti Vikas Maharaj already read the book. I didn't get it in my hand yet. He's already finished.
Shyam Sundar was also the connection to George Harrison. with Mukunda, Shyam Sundar, Guru Das. This was
that needs to be explained a little more, if you don't mind me cutting you off. How many of you have heard of the Beatles? Well, from England you would have heard. No? See, nobody knows, nobody means, put up your hand high if you heard about the Beatles music group from England.
Everyone knows.
Not everyone. It's about a little less than half.
The young boys don't know. The older people.
So, let me explain. In the 1960s, in England, there were 4 musicians. They became so famous, they became very arrogant also. We are more popular than Jesus. John Lennon said like that. There was something called Beatlemania in the 1960s. People went crazy for this singing group in the West, not in India, but in the United States and Europe. India too, a certain group of people, not the mass of people, but they were extremely famous, 4 of them. So what happened? Shyam Sundar, Tamal Krishna, and Guru Das and their wives, they were grihastas, started the ISKCON Center in London in 1969. 69. Shyam Sundar went to where the Beatles were recording music, a music studio, and George Harrison came out and met him, and he made friends with George Harrison. He was one of the 4 Beatles. Later on, George Harrison donated the Bhaktivedanta Manor in London. First, in '69, he donated $19,000 to print the Krishna Dashamaskan of the Bhagavatam, Krishna book. And you see some introduction is there in the book. And then in 1973, he gave the 17 acres and 44-room bungalow.
For £1.
It was a donation. And that today,
but they have to put a rate.
No, today it's 70 acres. They have 70 acres and they're building a new temple for 80 million pounds. That's the project. You didn't know about that, yeah. So that's ISKCON headquarters. In Janmashtami, 35,000 Hindus, mostly Hindus. There's 5 lakh Hindus in the UK and 5 lakh Muslims from India and Pakistan. And so it's become a big center for the Hindus, mostly Gujaratis, but all Hindus. And anyone is welcome, obviously. And so because of this, Shyam Sundar, because he went after the Beatles and somehow made a relation, and then later on, Prabhupada stayed in, John Lennon was the head of the Beatles. He was really the leader. John Lennon was assassinated, he was killed in 1980 in New York City by a crazy man. And George Harrison died in 2001 of cancer at the age of 57. 2 Beatles are still alive. They're both 70. Ringo is 76 and Paul is 74 of the original Beatles. So Prabhupada stayed in a huge estate with John Lennon in 1969. So just because when he said George Harrison, I didn't think how we would know who is George Harrison. So I'm setting a little history of who the Beatles were and how George Harrison helped ISKCON, for those who didn't know. For those who know, sorry I wasted your time. For those who didn't know, now you know. Right.
So Shyam Sundar, before he joined Prabhupada, he was a person who organized rock festivals. You know, like we were Woodstock, music festivals, 3-day. In America, that was the general trend, 3 days or 4 days festival, where all the people will come and stay there.
Lakhs of people.
Lakhs of people will come. So he was one of the people who used to organize these festivals. He was an expert in organizing the festivals. So when we came to Bombay, he wanted to organize one festival in Bombay at Cross Maidan. So Prabhupada immediately put me with Shyam Sundar to help Shyam Sundar, because you have to meet construction people, make the pandal, do the advertising, make the printing, meeting government officers for permissions, printing big posters to paste everywhere. A lot of spade work to do, and he was an expert, he knew what all to do. So I was put as his assistant. So I learned from Shyam Sundar how to organize these festivals. And the first festival we had was in Bombay at Juhu, in which I was initiated. I got my initiation there. And that was the festival where Radhanath Swami was introduced to Prabhupada. Radhanath Swami was sitting in the crowd with his big chata. He was like a sadhu Baba. And with me was Shruti Das and some other 3-4 devotees who were we all got initiated at that time in the Pandal festival.
At Juhu?
Not at Juhu.
You said Juhu?
No, in Cross Maidan.
Cross Maidan.
Cross Maidan.
We should explain where Cross Maidan is. How many people here have been to Bombay? Wow, okay. That's more than half.
It's near to Churchgate Station.
There's a Churchgate Station in Bombay. Some people don't know. Bombay is like this. There's something, a peninsula, you understand, 3 sides water, and then there's the city, and then as you go north, then there's, it expands, and now there's a new Bombay across the water on the eastern side. It's really coming up big. ISKCON has a big center that's like a 50-60 crore project. It's already built, but not finished. They need another 20-30 crores to finish, put all the furniture in the rooms, finish the job. So anyway, downtown Bombay, at the tip of this peninsula, is the last station on the Western Railway is called Churchgate. And so that's the heart of the old Bombay. Actually, the old Bombay is also quite big. But there's this open ground called Maidan in Hindi. What do you call it in Tamil? Maidan. Maidan. Same. What? I'm sorry. So Cross Maidan was the name of this huge. And how many people came to this festival? Every day there were thousands, right?
Minimum 5,000.
5,000.
Up to 10,000.
5 to 10,000. How many days was this?
7 days.
7-day program of only Prabhupada giving lectures.
Morning and evening.
Morning and evening. And thousands of people. So this is how ISKCON became popular in Bombay originally. At the beginning, very beginning.
So Prabhupada would give a lecture for 1.5 hours in the morning, then 1.5 hours in the evening. In the daytime we had question and answer booth, we had books, on one side we had books, we had prasadam distribution, and then we did Nagar Kirtan. Some 20-30 devotees would go all over Kolaba and Port and all the areas nearby, and we do street Kirtan, Nagar Kirtan. And it was a grand success. So from that I learned how to organize. And so then I used to go with my group of 5-6 devotees, and we would organize these festivals in other cities. Like we did in Surat, in Ahmedabad and Jamnagar. More in Gujarat, we used to work a lot in Gujarat.
No, but where did Prabhupada go?
Ahmedabad.
He didn't go to Jamnagar.
No, he didn't go to Jamnagar. So some of the festivals Prabhupada would come, and we would just organize it. Then once Prabhupada is on the stage doing the program, other devotees would take care, and Dinanath and me, we would go with our group to the next city to open up new cities. That's how we opened up cities.
Indore, there was Prabhupada had a program in Indore. Amritsar, did you organize that? He went to Amritsar, Prabhupada.
That was Chaitaguru.
Gorakhpur?
No, that side I didn't go. I was more on
Western.
Gujarat mainly.
And Hyderabad.
Hyderabad and this area.
Hyderabad first program was what year, Prabhupada's first program?
I think 72. I think. That's when he was.
72.
So the second pandal we had in Bombay, that is the one which was very interesting. On the last day of the pandal, that means 6 days had finished, on the last day, Prabhupada was giving this lecture which was very, very touching. He was speaking of love, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's love, and very touching lecture. And in that lecture, he mentioned, and he mentioned that my son, something like to that effect, that you are my son or something like that. And then he said Christians, Jewish, and he said Parsi, So there are many Christian devotees, there are many Jewish devotees, but there was only one Parsi devotee, and that's me. So already I was getting emotional with all the talk of Chaitanya and Nityananda and Prema Bhakti. Already the talk was quite emotional. And when he said Parsi, then at that moment I thought, 2,000 people he's talking, but he's thinking of me, because I was the only Parsi devotee of this. So I got overwhelmed and I just started crying. And then my body was shaking and I was feeling very disturbed in that way, emotional. Then the lecture finished, and after the lecture there was a play, a drama, and that drama story was Krishna, when he asked Narad Muni, Narad Muni says, who is your greatest devotee? So he says, if you want to know, you go in the earth planet and you ask the devotees for the dust. Krishna is having a headache, and the dust of my feet will cure Krishna's headache. You ask them and you see what is going on. So you all know that story. So after this lecture was the play, and in that play I was supposed to be Narad Muni, So I felt emotional, so I went in a corner somewhere in the back room and I hid myself because I was not feeling correct to act, and I hid. While all the others, Dinanath was Krishna, and there was some lady devotees who were the gopis, and Giriraj was the Jnani, and Rishi Kumar was the yogi. And so the devotees did the whole drama. We had practiced it a few times and we knew the lines and all that. So they all put on the dress, the Jnani put on the Jnani dress, the yogi put on his dress, and Dinanath put on his dress and all. And where is Narad Muni, where is Mahamsa? They're all searching. The play is supposed to start and there is no Mahamsa. So then they found me in that corner and quickly grabbed my hand, and I'm Narad Muni, so I'm a devotee dress. They just put a tundu on my head and I was ready. So they dragged me on the stage and right on the stage. So once I was on the stage, all the emotion went and I was into my character of Narad Muni. So it started, the drama went on for a while. And Prabhupada was sitting in the first bench. First line.
First row.
The first row of the crowd. We were all on the stage. In the middle of the stage was an altar of Radha Krishna. So we did the play and I did all the thing, and I went to the Jnani, I went to the yogi, Narad Muni does all that. Everyone says, oh, you are trying to lower my position. The Jnani says I will lose. So Jnani says I will lose all my knowledge, the yogi says I will lose all my siddhis, the businessman says I will lose my Lakshmi, it's a big offense. And then Narad Muni finally goes to the gopis And the gopis, take out all the dust of their feet and give it to him in a bundle, go and put it on Krishna's head. Narad Muni says, oh, you will go to hell. They said 10,000 births I will go to hell, but put it on Krishna's head, make Krishna good, And I go and put it on Dinanath's head and he stands up and starts jumping and the story is over and then I start the kirtan on the stage. All through this whole scene of acting, I'm doing the acting, but all the time I'm looking at Prabhupada sitting there. Because already there was something churning in my heart by the lecture. So all through that play I'm only looking at Prabhupada. And Prabhupada is big smile on his face. Big smile, and watching the play. And then the kirtan starts. And in that particular day there was minimum 10,000 people. Minimum.
Huge crowd.
Huge, packed. And the kirtan started, and after the kirtan started, suddenly Prabhupada walks up and he gets on top of the stage and he comes in front of the deities and he does like that and then he puts his hands up and he circumambulates the deities. As soon as that happens, all the other devotees, about 20 devotees, come up on the stage. And Prabhupada is going round and round the deities, and then suddenly he's dancing, he's jumping, and like we could not believe, that Prabhupada is doing like that because he's old.
76 or 77.
Yeah, and he's dancing, jumping, and he's dancing and going round and all the devotees are going crazy and going round, and it was very, very ecstatic. And that went on for quite some time, and then finally it stopped and then that whole thing finished. After a while, when I met people who were in that congregation, in the audience, they said that the whole audience was struck with ecstasy. People in the audience were crying, they were feeling shaking, everyone in the audience, I heard many people from the audience, they said they will never forget that evening because the whole audience was shaking with ecstasy with this whole scene of Prabhupada.
This is the second Cross Maidan Pandal.
Yes, second Pandal.
What year was it, 71 or 72?
I think it was before Juhu. So
Could have been the beginning of 72. Because for 70, I don't think there was a Cross Maidan. 71, I'm not sure. You don't remember. You don't remember.
Yeah, so that was one incident.
So when you went to Ahmedabad, Prabhupada came there. How was that? I never heard myself much about that program.
Ahmedabad,
72.
We organized a very good program. It was there were some very good members, Gujarati senior people who helped us. We used to go to a city which nobody knows ISKCON. In those days, nobody knew ISKCON. So we would go to a city and we'd go to the Hindu Sabha. Every city would have a Hindu Sabha. So we'd go to that Hindu Sabha and there are some prominent Hindus. So we'd go and talk to them first and we'd get them involved. And with them we would go to the big people, who have rich people or prominent people. So businessmen. And then we would ask them that we want to make this program, we want so much money, we want to do printing, we'd give them a breakdown. And so we would start generating some money. And at the same time, we would organize the stage wala and the pandal wala and the chair wala and all those things. And so that's how we would break the city. And we would go to all the prominent people, the Hindu Samaj people and the rich people, and we would open up the city for ISKCON. And then after every pandal, inevitably somebody would give a land or a center would start. The center would start at every place. So that's how
not everywhere, because in an indoor, nothing happened. And in Ahmedabad also nothing happened. Gorakhpur also.
In Ahmedabad,
Amritsar also.
Ahmedabad started very much at that time.
Who was in Ahmedabad then? Because
I don't know, but
Jaswamati Nandan Prabhu went in 1976.
yeah, by that time already there was quite a lot of activity in Ahmedabad.
No, Tamal Krishna Maharaj made some life members
Yeah,
from out of Bombay. Some devotees might from Bombay, from Vrindavan. People came,
Yeah.
but the center didn't start until 76.
so
When
once
Prabhupada came back to Sanand, which is near Ahmedabad, the king of Sanand had organized, and that was later on, that was 75, just before Nellore. When Prabhupada came January to Madras, Chennai, and Nellore. I think Prabhupada came to Chennai before that January 76 program. Did he come before that?
where?
Chennai.
Chennai.
He came 76 January 1st and 2nd. I don't know if he came.
No.
He didn't. Only one. Tirupati 74. You want to talk about Hyderabad? You were there for 5 years.
So one day Prabhupada calls me to his room, and I think that was still in Akash Ganga, and he says again, he's not saying go to Hyderabad, start a center. Prabhupada didn't do that. He would make a preamble, he would make a story, and he'd convince you very gently. You know, he wouldn't order, he would request. This was the way he used to get things out of us.
Great quality.
Great quality. He would not order, he would just order, but he would request. So he started. You know, Hyderabad, we had a great pandal and this, very nice, and this and that. And this Pularedi came in on the last day of the pandal, he gave the land. And we left. He offered the land, and we left. And Prabhupada said, it's a very beautiful spot right in the heart of the city, very good area, and that man also very nice. We must do something in Hyderabad. And I said, yeah. You know, I'm happy with my Gujarat program. I speak Gujarati, I like Gujaratis, they're all Vaishnavas. So I love Gujarat and Maharashtra, and that area was doing a great program. So I'm saying, what Prabhupada is saying. Then he suddenly says, we have to build a temple very quickly. We have to take the land and build a temple that quickly. So I say, yeah, okay. Then he says, you go and start it. I'm 20 years old that time. I'm 20 years old.
1972.
Yes. I'm 20 years old. And he says, you start it. I said, me? You know, I don't know anything. I'm just a young devotee. I don't know anything. You know. And I said, Prabhupada, why me? You know, and I started arguing a little bit. You know, aren't you happy with my pandal program and opening of the cities? Aren't you happy with my program in Gujarat and all that? You know, so a little argument I do. You know, not me, Prabhupada. That Muslim place, Hyderabad. I was thinking like that Muslim and Gujarat was a paradise to preach because all Vaishnavas. So then Prabhupada is listening to me like that, you know, he's not saying anything, and I am talking. Then suddenly I realize, what am I doing, you know? This is my Guru, and whatever he says, his wish is my wish. I am supposed to surrender, I am a surrendered devotee. Then suddenly he says, oh Prabhupada, okay, but how do I do Prabhupada? I don't know anything, I don't know building, I don't know civil engineering, I don't know all these things. So he says, I will give you good men, you know. He says like that, I will give you good men, I will give you Achyutananda Swami, I will give you Akshayananda Swami, I will give you good devotees, and you do it, and you will do, you know, like that he said. Then we start talking how to get the land, registration, then he tells me all those things. I said, whatever Prabhupada, everything you are only doing your grace, I will do whatever you want. So then he said, okay, you go and start the Hyderabad center. So I came, and that day, in those days we were living in one small apartment. Anandamaya was there. So we were living in a small apartment and we were very poor. ISKCON was poor in those days. You know, in America, it was ice cold. In Toronto, where I joined, I had to wear rubber boots and we used to wear socks. We didn't have money.
For
so we used to wear socks because it was so cold.
You didn't have
we
money
didn't
to
have
heat the
gloves.
building.
No.
Hand gloves.
Oh, no, we used to do Nagar Kirtan on the street. In the
Oh, I see.
So over there in the Nagar Kirtan, we have to wear rubber boots, which are very cold, and socks, you know. And we do Kirtan on Young Street in Toronto. It's very 10 degrees below zero. So
And you were doing kirtan
yes,
in the
because in
winter.
those days we only did Nagar Kirtan and selling back to Garbage magazine for 25 cents.
Can I say something? When I came to Bombay in 1974, I don't know how I had the phone number of Juhu Temple, but from the airport I phoned, and Sridhar, later on Sridhar Swami, he picked me up in a jeep. And in the whole ISKCON in India, there were 2 jeeps. One was in Hyderabad, and with Akshayananda and Panchakarika, and one was in Bombay. Nobody had a car. There was no car. In 1976, there was an American guy whose business we cannot talk about, number 2 business. He purchased 3 cars for Prabhupada. Remember that? One for Bombay, one for Vrindavan, and one for Mayapur. And Gargamuni was the Calcutta temple president. He bought a car for himself. Ambassador car was 30,000 rupees. Nobody could afford 30,000 rupees. You bought this land, Krishnadas was telling you were telling 35 rupees for a square foot. Today it's 1,000 rupees. And the cars were fake money at today's rate, 30,000 rupees. You can't even get a scooter now for 30,000 rupees. A moped maybe 30,000, huh? How much is a moped? They're very popular here.
Yeah, small moped you can.
30,000 rupees. At that time, Ambassador car was 30,000. Nobody could afford. Nobody had the money. So you can understand what he's saying, how ISKCON he was in Bombay, but by that time Prabhupada had also established Vrindavan, Delhi, Calcutta and Bombay. There were 4 centers in India. Hyderabad became the 5th center. And people wanted to start in other places, but in Chennai they started, they stopped. Then, after Prabhupada disappeared, it stopped again. So then all these temples came up much later.
Mayapur came quite early.
Yeah, Mayapur was, when Prabhupada was there, in 1972, Calcutta, Mayapur, Delhi, Vrindavan and Bombay. So the 6th center was Hyderabad.
All the starting, we were involved. Juhu Temple with Mr. Nair. I was dealing with Shamsundar, who was talking to Nair. So that was all going on. When Prabhupada we bought the land in Mayapur. At that time, we built a hut for Mayapur, and we were living in tents. When Prabhupada's kutir was there, and we just got that land at that time, and we had a big program there, so all the devotees were.
So you traveled many places.
Even Vrindavan. Vrindavan also, when we got the land, I was there when we cut the bush in Raman Reddy.
So he was one of the first devotees in India.
Starting program. So it was, ISKCON was very poor. It was not very wealthy. We used to do life membership collection. Sometimes someone will give 5,000 rupee donation. Wow, we got 5,000 or 10,000.
Life membership was 1111.
And so in Hyderabad, we were living in a very small house, and our only income was going to the exhibition ground where there was a mela going on, and we distribute these magazines, for 50 paisa, maximum 1 rupee, 50 paisa was the actual rate. So we collect that money.
This was a rented house?
Rented house. And no, it was given, we didn't pay rent, Perumal gave us that house to use. Small apartment, one diet member.
I see.
Perumal or something. And then we collected some money and we built that shed in the front. Prabhupada gave
You didn't tell that you got the land.
Yeah, we got the land and then we built a shed in the front, we made a little temple and we ordered the first big deity, Radha Madan Mohan. And Prabhupada came there.
Let me explain how many people have been to Hyderabad from here. It's not even a quarter of the people. What Hyderabad is today and what Hyderabad, we're talking 45 years ago. 45 years, 1972. I came in 74, 43 years ago. So Hyderabad, there was an old city, then there was expansion, and now it's just massive, like 1 crore of people. So there are 2 railway stations in Hyderabad. One is Secunderabad, which is a twin city. You understand, Hyderabad and Secunderabad, they're 2 cities. So the big railway station was in Secunderabad, not in Hyderabad. Actually, Hyderabad is off, it's not on the main railway lines of anywhere. Even from north to Chennai, Hyderabad doesn't come. From Bombay to Chennai, Hyderabad doesn't come. Warangal was a big junction. So Hyderabad, there was a small station called Nampally Station in Hyderabad, and then there was a big station, Secunderabad. There's a new station now, I think, and there's a new airport. At that time, Begum Pet Airport. I remember Prabhupada coming. I also flew with Prabhupada from Bombay to Hyderabad for the temple opening at the Begum Pet Airport. Now that's closed, and they made this new airport. So the land that Pulareddy gave was just opposite his sweet shop in what is called Abid's. Abid's was near Nampally Station, and they used to call it Abid's shop because it was a commercial area. There were small, still it's like that. There's no big malls, and now they've started these malls like America. But Abid's had many jewelry shops and sweet shops, and different, it was a commercial area. And the post office was there, the general post office for Hyderabad, the big post office was in the middle of, they called it Abid's Circle. So that our land was opposite Vrindavan Hotel, and there was a sliver of land on the road, and inside it opened up to a bigger plot. And much later, they bought a bungalow that was right next to the temple, and now they made a guest house and a restaurant on that. And they've renovated the temple. But the original temple construction, the land was obtained in 1972. And that sliver of land where Prabhu is talking about, they built a shed like this, kind of. Smaller than this or smaller than this? No, but 300 people sat down in that. Not much smaller, a little smaller than this, and it had that asbestos sheet roof. That land was taken by Pulareddy. That wasn't part of the donated land. And even today, well, there's a little gopuram on the road, and you can enter through an entrance pathway. And then there's a side road which is in front of the temple. The temple is facing south. I think its temple's facing south. Anyway, when he's talking about, is there any time restriction? Because we're already 9:15. You want to go on? You're okay? Everyone's sitting. Everyone's interested. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Continue? You don't mind me interrupting now and then. But I think whatever you're saying, everyone's really keen. You know, it's going very well.
So So, Prabhupada came and saw Madan Mohan. We got some very tall deities, you know.
Yeah, 4.5 feet or 5 feet.
Very beautiful, Radharani, very beautiful. So he came and looked at them, and he did a little dance, and then he said, Radha Madan Mohan. That's when he gave the name. And then we designed the temple. So he told me, you make the temple like Sanatan Goswami, because in Vrindavan, the Sanatan Goswami temple is Radha Madan Mohan. Radha Madan Mohan was Sanatan Goswami's mandir. So I went and studied the whole Gopuram and got pictures of it, and so the temple Gopuram is built identical to the Madan Mohan temple in Vrindavan. So we did all that, and then it was in 2.5 years we built that temple, and we collected about 17, costed 17 lakhs to build that temple. He was a big contributor and collector for that. He had a major role to play. And some money, Prabhupada always told us that you are given a project, you know, you have to provide it for it. I will give you like a little bit of salt in the meal. I will be a bit of salt in the meal. This is exactly how Prabhupada explained to me. Don't ask me all the time for money to do this, money to do that. I will be like a little bit of salt in the meal. So we did all the collection. Whenever we ran out, I would say, Prabhupada, we run out, what to do? And he would always send some money to keep things going. And sometimes he'd get upset, he'd get angry. Why are you asking me all the time? I'm a bit of salt in the meal. But we did, and by Krishna's grace, that temple finished, and it was the first ISKCON, Hyderabad was the first ISKCON temple built. Everywhere in the world we had beautiful temples, but there were houses which were, even palaces like in Germany and all, which were renovated, like the Schloss or the Bhaktivedanta Manor. These were all renovated houses in Bombay.
But actually, it was the second.
What?
Vrindavan was first.
Hyderabad was before Vrindavan.
No. Vrindavan was inaugurated.
Inaugurated, but the temple.
I see the building.
It was
started before Vrindavan.
Hyderabad was the first built ISKCON temple. Vrindavan was finished later.
Hare Krishna.
So at that time, Prabhupada was in France. I'm coming to one nice story and then we'll close. Prabhupada was in France, and it was getting, say, 2-3 months before Janmashtami. So 2-3 months before Janmashtami, Prabhupada would decide where he will be during Janmashtami. Now the whole world wants Prabhupada to be in their place. And West Virginia, which is the New Vrindavan, Kirtanananda Maharaj was there. He was the main push. So the whole American Yatra was behind Kirtanananda, saying that call Prabhupada to New Vrindavan for Janmashtami. And Prabhupada said to me that if you finish the temple by Janmashtami, I'll come to Hyderabad to inaugurate the temple. So there was a big transcendental competition. So all the Indian leaders, Gopal Krishna, Tamal Krishna was the GDC for India. So Gopal Krishna, Tamal Krishna, Jayapataka Swami, everyone calling me one after another. Mahamsa, can you finish the temple before Janmashtami? I said, very difficult, because it was nowhere near finishing. 3 months before. It was nowhere near finishing. They said, all full pressure. So I talked to Surabhi Maharaj, was there at that time as an architect, and he was doing the construction. We discussed with the contractor and this and that. And we said, okay, if we do 24-hour construction, that means put some big floodlights and 24-hour, one shift, second shift, third shift, we may finish it.
Day and night.
Day and night work. So we decided, and then we said, okay, Prabhupada, inauguration in Hyderabad. The whole India Yatra very happy. American Yatra feeling sad. So that was decided, and we worked very hard, we worked, and we got it going, we finished it, and so we had a great ceremony, opening ceremony. All the big pandits, Ahobilam, Acharya from Ahobilam.
No, he was from Bangalore.
Ahobilam.
Sampat Kumar Bhattacharya.
Sampat Kumar, but there was another big.
No, that was his younger brother. He was a Narasimha Bhatta.
So all the big pandits of South India came, and we did.
Muralidhar Ganpati was there, Nampalli, Vedpata.
So we had a lot of Vedic mantras, and Jasodanandan was heading that whole thing, and he was doing all that mantras.
I don't know Yashodanandan, but anyway.
So all that was going on, and the deities were, Jagannath deities were made by the same family which make the Jagannath temple deities. There is a parampara, there is a family parampara who after every 12 years they make the Jagannath deity in Jagannath Puri. That same family made the Jagannath deities in Hyderabad. So it said there was one room which was locked, and the same story like before, that when he is making the Jagannath Vishwakarma, nobody must open the door, nobody must see. So the same thing was done there in Hyderabad. One room was given and he did all the finishing. The finishing he did. And then he brought the deity out and how he danced with it's a big deity in Hyderabad. And he danced and took the deity to the temple on the top, and there was a big kirtan. And after all the three deities came up to the temple and were made to sit on the altar, there was a big kirtan going on, and this Ahobilam Baba, with a big beard and long hair and all gold here, you know, this old traditional Brahmins, he went into a Narsimha ecstasy. He became like a lion. He went rah, rah. He became like lion. He got into that Narsimha ecstasy, and then he fainted. So here we saw one real ecstatic mood, you know, of the kirtan, and so that was one wonderful thing. And the small deity, there is one small Jagannath in Hyderabad. That deity is the same wood which is in the original Jagannath temple, because there was a piece of wood left over when they made the big deity of Jagannath in the Jagannath temple. This family is the people who did it. So they had a small piece of wood, and he asked me, he offered that to us in Hyderabad, and he made a small Jagannath which is in the temple there. That wood is the same wood which is in the original Jagannath temple. So Hyderabad is very blessed with that. Anyway, Prabhupada came for the opening ceremony. We had a great function, lakhs of
Chief Minister came.
Yeah, Chief Minister was invited. So, yeah. So the night before there was still some work unfinished. Everything was ready, the whole program was set, but you know, there was some painting which was to be cleaned, some dust was here and there was some dust, construction dust, you know what I mean. So all the devotees and brahmacharis and everyone were polishing the floor, and like that it went on, you know, till 1 o'clock in the night. And then slowly, one by one, the devotees went to their rooms and went to sleep, but after everything finished, I'm the captain of the ship. So I went everywhere and checked that everything is okay, every corner is shining, everything is shining, cham hona chahiye na. Mandir opening ho raha hai, chamak na hona chahiye. So I went and cleaned everything, checked that everything is okay, and at 3 o'clock I finished my work. And I was so tired that we had some steps going up, Prabhupada's room, and then we go up to the second floor, the brahmachari area. So just after Prabhupada's room, I was so tired that on that steps only I went to sleep. I did not go to my room. Suddenly in the morning, Palika comes and wakes me up. What are you doing here? Get up quickly, Prabhupada wants to see you immediately. I said, wow, already it was a little late, it was 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock, Mangalarati had finished. So, Prabhupada wants to see me. Quickly I got up, like army. In army there is when they give a sound, emergency sound, in 7 minutes you have to be ready. In the army, when they give an emergency bell, they have to be ready in 7 minutes. Wash everything, uniform, and be in the front in 7 minutes. So I was in that speed. Quickly brushed my teeth, quick bath, put on the tilak, bath, everything, and I was zoomed like a rocket in Prabhupada's room, And I was feeling very elated. I went with this energy, that we did it, and all that feeling, that proud feeling, and full energy, like, great, I'm so great, that's the feeling. And I went into Prabhupada's room with that energy, and from Prabhupada's room, he could see the temple. His room is in such a way that there is a balcony there. And from his room he can have darshan of the deities. And he can see the temple hall. It's designed like that. So I went and offered my obeisances, and I looked up, very happy and proud and all that. And Prabhupada was like that, mad with anger. He says, why nobody was there for kirtan? Mangalarati, there was only 2 devotees in Mangalarati. Why nobody was there in Mangalarati? He said like that. So I said, but Prabhupada, all the devotees worked, with full pride, I said, the devotees, they did work till 1 o'clock, they were cleaning, Prabhupada, why don't be so mean, like that, without saying, that was my mind. That Prabhupada, come on, they worked till 1 o'clock, the devotees, like that I said. As soon as I said devotees, he got more angry. He said, devotee, you melacha, you yavana, and you kitna gali diya. Gali after gali, you think you are devotee? This rascal, this, that, all gali diya. And mera bhi kuski ho gaya. Mera bhi kuski ho gaya. And then I realized, and then he was so angry and like that, so almost tears were coming, Then he saw me like that, then he immediately changed. Before the tears could come out, immediately he changed, He says, the Goswamis of Vrindavan, Sanatana, Rupa Goswami, they are seeing Krishna actually all the time. They are actually seeing Krishna all the time, but they are always saying, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? They are saying, I am so fallen, I cannot see Krishna, and they are running tree after tree, and they are searching, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? And they are always feeling they are very fallen, they are useless. But actually they are seeing Krishna, but they are feeling, this is the mood of the devotee. He says, this is the mood of devotee. Not you did some 5 years service, 6 years service, and you think you are devotee. No. He says, this is the mood of devotee. Like that he went on and he explained Braj. At that moment, this is the teaching. If anyone asks me, what was your greatest experience of Prabhupada? This is my greatest experience of Prabhupada. When he explained that in such a loving way, it was like he was showing me Braj, and Narottam Das, therefore Narottam Das Thakur, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, they are always saying, they are lamenting that, oh, I am so fallen, please, I am crying, Kandiya, Kandiya, I am breaking my head on the wall, please, Hari Hari people, please, I am fallen, I am nowhere, I am nowhere. They are not proud. They are not saying, oh, I am so great, I did this, I did that. That is a disqualification. Trenadapi sunichena tarodapi saishuna amanina manadena kirtanasari. After that, prem starts. Prem starts after this verse. Before that, he says, Nam Nama Bahuda Shakti, the holy name has so much power. Krishna has so many names. Any name you can chant, that's the second verse. Then Trenadapi. After Trenadapi, then the Bhakti Bhav starts. So there is no love unless you have this quality of humility. There is no love. Dusra sab kuch milega. Lekin prem you will get only after humility. Then it goes on other higher levels of prem in the Shikshashtakam. So this was Prabhupada's one teaching which I have always treasured in my heart, always. Don't think that you're a great devotee or you've done this, you've done that. Whatever you have done is nothing. Whatever you have done is nothing. We have to do that. Therefore, the famous Prabhupada word, double it. Double it. Devotees will come. Prabhupada had distributed so many books. Double it. Then he will double it. He said, I doubled it, Prabhupada. Double it. These famous words, double it. So, what is he teaching in that? That don't think you have done enough. Even Radharani doesn't think she's done enough. So what to speak of us? So we must always be in a humble state of mind. We must always think of ourselves as doing nothing in spite of trying the best we can do. And in that way we must develop prem. Why are we here? We are here to love Krishna. We are here to love Krishna. So we must develop this mood. When we chant Hare Krishna, we are like a little child lost in the forest. Prabhupada used to also give this example. Like a small 5-year-old baby lost in the forest, going with the mother in the forest, suddenly the mother is gone. Then how that baby will cry? Ma, ma, how that baby will cry. Innocent, the genuine crying. So our chanting Hare Krishna is like that. It must be like a genuine crying. Oh Krishna, save me, I am in this material whirlpool, fully surrounded by illusion. Save me, protect me. And that goes on to higher levels. When you become a big devotee or a so-called big devotee, then so many other these things don't go. When someone praises you, you put on this mala on me. I will think that, oh, I am so great. I am such a great devotee. Humko mala pehnaya. Ye bhi ananta hai. This is not acceptable. The more you advance in devotional service, smaller things will come. Are you feeling happiness when someone praises you? If you are feeling happy when someone praises you, something is wrong. Now that only we can introspect ourselves. I cannot say this person, that person, this person. We have to introspect ourselves. So when someone worships you or when someone says nice things to you, are you feeling happy about it? If someone says bad things to you, are you feeling unhappy? वो भी गलत है. Neutral. When someone praises you or something, you must not feel that मेरा कुछ है.
That's in Gita.
Prabhupada का सर. Therefore Prabhupada used to सब कुछ आता है, but he always gave the credit to his guru. That is how Prabhupada used to train us, you know. Don't take the credit of anything. Pass the credit to the Guru.
That in Gita, Dukeshu Anudvignaha Mana Sukeshu Vigatas Spriya Gita Raga Bhaya Krodha Stitati Muni Ruchate. Second chapter of Gita. That's it.
Yes, so that's the thing. And
I'm sure there's much more, but time 35.
So one more thing, just
They're all
just to conclude.
riveted. You got riveted audience.
So we are in this Kali Yuga. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us an easy way, you know, because we are all very fallen. Our minds are all crazy, you know, and Maya is crazy outside. So we are very fallen actually. Therefore, Mahaprabhu has given us this benediction of the holy name. Simple way, simple. Now they are Sanskrit scholars, but how many can learn Sanskrit? We are not capable to learn Sanskrit, you know. Sanskrit is the language of Krishna.
We can have a debate on that later.
But, you know, so I'm saying in general,
Well, it's my reply to that is there are people sitting here already speaking 3-4 languages. Like he knows Hindi, Gujarati, Tamil, and English. So why not Sanskrit?
can be.
India is a land of multi languages.
My point
The
is,
point is, humility, bhakti, chanting name is more important. That we have to admit.
so Mahaprabhu has given the simple chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So we must appreciate that, chant the name nicely. We are given a very simple process. Do it nicely. We are very fortunate. Everyone who is in this hall and everyone who is connected to ISKCON is most fortunate because we are connected with Namo Mahabharanyaya. After leaving ISKCON, I went traveling as a sadhu all over the Himalayas. I went to every Kumbh Mela, I went to every Tirtha, Muktinath, Amarnath, every yatra I have done. And I mixed with all sadhus. With the Naga Babas I mixed, with the, what are they called?
Ramanandis.
Namanandis, with the Ramdas Babas, I mean, what are they called?
Akada.
Different akhadas. I've been with all, I've mixed with all, and I've studied, I've heard them, I've exchanged, I've eaten with them, I've traveled with them, I've begged with them, Madhukari, everything I did because I was not connecting to ISKCON, so my only pleasure was to be a sadhu. So whenever I get chance, I will leave Kodaikanal for 2-3 months, I will travel with other sadhus. And everywhere I used to realize, okay, these people are nowhere compared to Prabhupada. Every time I would realize, I met Naga Babas of the biggest secretary and Akada Balas. No comparison to Prabhupada. I met so many sadhus, but the school of thought, I'm not saying as a person, I'm saying the school of thought. Even Vaishnavas, I have met so many, Ramanandis, so many Vaishnavas. Their school of thought is going only to a point. While what Prabhupada is giving through Chaitanya is the essence, this Gopi Bhava Bhava, this whole Brajalila. This is nobody in any akhada is giving. So whoever is here, we must think some very great fortune of past life, some very great fortune, or the touch of a pure devotee. This fortune that you are all here and you are connected to this kind of to Prabhupada and this philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and you should take full advantage, chant very nicely, chant humbly. Always remember this Prenadapi Sunyachena verse, and that should be always in front of your eyes, not to become proud, because that will finish everything. You cannot have prem be proud. Even Radharani was dropped by Krishna when Krishna took her on her back and left all the gopis and went into the forest. And Radharani thought, oh, I am something special. He left all the other gopis and I am special. I am sitting on his back and going, wow, I feel good. Immediately Krishna understood, he dropped her there and went away. And then she went, oh, crying. So, I can go on a little more, but I think everyone is hungry. As Prabhupada said, give good prasadam. So, let us all enjoy good prasadam now. Chant. This is what attracted us all. Our spiritual path is chanting, dancing and feasting. Itna acha. No tapasya, no standing on one leg, no fasting, no big ज्ञान इतना पढ़ना भी नहीं जरूरत है. Chanting, dancing, feasting. This is our philosophy. In Kumbh Mela, Prabhupada, one story is coming, I also can't stop.
Can continue.
So in Kumbh Mela, there is all these big akhadas, all lectures going on, this Baba, that Baba, everything is going on, you know. And in our ISKCON Pandal, there is Kirtan going on, Kirtan and Prasadam distribution. Prabhupada will speak for some time. So this is exactly what Prabhupada said. All these people, they are doing suffering so much, tapasya, standing on the leg and catching fire and sleeping on the nails and all that they are doing, and so much study of Vedas and all that they are doing. But we will go back to Godhead by eating gulab jamun. We don't want gulab jamun and eat it and smile. We will go back to Godhead eating gulab jamun. So we are in a very wonderful process. You know, Harinam, Harinam, Harinam eva kevalam, kalo nasteva, nasteva, nasteva. Okay, Hare Krishna.
His Grace Mahamsa Prabhu ki, His Grace Basu Prabhu ki.